Item 1. Apologies for absence. Apologies have been received from Councillor Luigi Gregori, proposed additional local authority member. His proposed deputy, Councillor David Podger, is due to attend in his place. 2. Are there any declarations of interest that members may wish to make at this point? Item 3. Police and Crime Panel Appointment and Co-option Report. This report from Democratic Services Officers to the panel sets out the membership of the panel for 24-25 municipal year and the proposed appointment of local authority co-opted members. Do members have any comments or questions? Members are now asked to vote on the following recommendations. Recommendations 3. That the panel notes its membership for 24-25 municipal year as laid out in Table 2 of this report. 4. That Councillor Luigi Gregori is appointed to the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Police and Crime Panel as local authority co-opted member, and Councillor David Podger as Deputy Local Authority co-opted member representing the Liberal Democrat group. 5. That Councillor Simon Minnie-Bound and Councillor Gwen Robinson be appointed to the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Police and Crime Panel as local authority co-opted members representing the Conservative group. 6. That, subject to the appointment proposed above, the panel notes the panel membership is, at the current time, politically proportionate for the purposes of the balanced appointment objective as outlined in Table 3. If agreed, invite the appointed members to join the main table. So I now ask you to make that vote. No. No. Yep, noted. Are we going to vote on that? We all okay with that? Agreed. So I now, if agreed, invite the appointed members to join the main table. So colleagues, can you come down? Now, before I move on to the election of a chairman, a matter has come to my attention relevant to one of the membership of this panel. That member wishes to make a prepared statement relevant to the position prior to the election of a chairman. I would invite Councillor Meenan to make that declaration now.
Thank you, Mr. Both. I've spoken to the monitoring officer and an email today has no status relevant to the committee and no standing. I make this declaration for the purpose of transparency, clarity and probity. Thank you.
Thank you. I now proceed to item 4, election of the chairman. I call for nominations and a seconder for chairman of the panel at this AGM of 2024. Yes, Councillor.
Nominate Vivian Atchwell.
Do I have any others? As I now have 2 nominations, I invite both of the relevant nominees to make a statement to the panel at this point. I would invite Councillor Atchwell to make her statement first.
Thank you. Good morning, members. I know there's quite a few new members on the panel today. You won't know that I was actually vice chair of the committee last year, overshadowing Councillor Woodward. And I learned quite a lot while I was the vice chair of how to, the different interviews we had to do with different members to join the group. Also, I've been a councillor since 2008, a Winchester City Councillor since 2008. I've been Mayor of Winchester about 3 years ago, so I'm used to chairing meetings. I've also been chairman of the North Whiteley Forum, which is currently having 3,500 houses built. And I've chaired that for the last 5 years, so I am used to chairing meetings. One thing that was disbanded from this panel last year were 2 separate panels, one looking at finance and another panel. I'd like to see those panels reinstated should members of the panel wish that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I would now invite Councillor Karen Luciani to make your declaration.
Thank you, colleagues. I'm an independent. I believe in absolutely cross-party working. I also would like to see an independent chair for this board. I work as a cabinet member for community protection, and I'm also on the LGO board for Safer and Strong Communities, so have a real understanding of this subject. And I've been a councillor since 2013 and on the local authority since 2021. And I would ask you to vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Returning to the first nominee, may I have a show of hands in support of that proposition? Thank you. There you go. Yeah. Yes. Could I have a show of hands for support of Councillor Luciani? With nine votes, I would confirm that Councillor Luciani has been elected as chair of this panel.
Thank you, colleagues. So we're going to do the vote for vice chair for the coming year. Do we have any nominations?
Thank you. I'd like to nominate Councillor Phil Davis as Vice Chair for the PCP.
Thank you. I'd like to make a nomination, please. I'd like to nominate Alan Oliver. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you, Chair. I'd like to nominate Councillor Becky Williams.
We'll do those in order. So, those who would like to vote, sorry, we got seconders. We've done second. Yeah. So the first vote is for Philip Davis. The next one is for Alan Oliver. And It's a tie, so I've been the chair, obviously. So I will go for Philip Davies. Welcome. Did you want to say anything? No. Okay, fair enough. Okay, on to item 6. That is the minutes from the previous meeting on the 15th of March 2024. Do I have anybody who'd like to propose those? Thank you. Anybody second those? I wasn't here, so I can't. Just note them. We can just note those then, yeah, thank you. And I don't sign those either. Yeah, do you want to do those now? Just sign the top. Item 7, deputations and questions. So we don't have any deputations or public questions that are received for this meeting. Okay, so they have to be received before the meeting, so we don't have anything for item 7. So moving on to item 8, we're doing quite well here now. Chairman's announcements. This is going to be even quicker. I don't have any, so we'll wait for next time for that one. So, but I would like to welcome all the members to the panel and the Democratic Services Office for planning and arranging the induction and training event for all panel members. Do we know? It'll be in September. So that will be in September. So we'll get emails about that. Yeah. So I look forward to that and going there. And our thanks to those members who have served on the panel last year, who have not been reappointed. And congratulations to the PCC. Donna Jones on her re-election since our last meeting. Well done, Donna. So item 9, Police and Crime Commissioners announcements. Donna, would you like to?
Good morning, panel. It's nice to see you and to be back as Police and Crime Commissioner. And Chair, thank you very much for your kind words. I just want to also place on record, if you don't mind, my sincere thanks to the people of Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. Hundreds of thousands of people who went out and voted for all of us, and also to pay credit to Becky, who was one of my running mates during the election. And thank you for the good campaign that you ran. So thank you very much, Becky. It was nice to get to know you, and particularly now that you're on the panel as well. So if it's okay with you, Chair, items 9 and 10, which is my updates and the Police and Crime Plan update, I was proposing to take them together because I don't have a huge amount to give you on the Police and Crime Plan at the moment, other than some of the timescales and things, but ultimately a matter for the panel to decide. If you want me to do them as 2 separate, I will do, but it's your decision.
I'm quite happy for that. Is everybody else? Well, just by affirmation, I think everybody's quite happy with that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the updates have been sent through to you in the last couple of days. We're going to endeavour to get those through to you even earlier, so there is more time, particularly those of you who are twin hatters and sit on numerous meetings. I'm conscious of the more time you have, the better prepared you'll be to be able to formulate your questions to me. So we are working on that for next month as well. So March really was a big push on rural crime and shoplifting. But in terms of the rural crime, the Chief Constable and I went to the New Forest and launched a new approach towards tackling rural crime. This includes having more ANPR, automatic number plate recognition cameras, across our rural areas. The growth in serious and organised crime in rural communities is growing, and it is a very lucrative market now, and we are becoming victims in Hampshire of organised crime gangs coming from outside of the county who are using us, stealing and taking things through the port in Southampton onto Eastern Europe and the rest of the world, which you may remember me talking about previously. I did also allocate £1 million that's gone into our intelligence teams. That's one of the teams in the constabulary that was cut quite a lot in the past, and we need to reinvest a number of new officers. I think it's 10 or 11 new posts that are going into the intelligence department of the force, and that will also help in rural communities. Moving on then, in March I also opened the new front counter at Portsmouth Central Police Station, and it's good to see Portsmouth councillors here today. So I'm hoping that they have had some positive feedback on the opening of the Portsmouth Central front counter. That police station does actually need a massive refurb and an overhaul as well, and I can update the panel on that in more detail if you wish today or at a subsequent meeting. And also open the front counter at Park Gate. And Councillor Burst, it's nice to have you here, and obviously thank you for attending that and supporting the policing team there as well. It was good to have you there. In terms of the IOPC, so the Independent Office of Police Complaints have got a new chief, actually she's Director General, her name is Rachel Watson. She was previously the DG at the policing unit in the Home Office, and the IOPC has had a bumpy few years. Dr. Julian Fairfield was asked to do a review of the IOPC and came up with over 130 recommendations of how to improve that particular non-government department, but also around how to improve the dismissal of corrupt police officers. That is something that I'm monitoring and working through. The IOPC have not adopted all of the recommendations that they have been recommended, but I think they've adopted 42 of them, and that's really important in terms of cleaning up police misconduct and improving trust and confidence with the public. So over the next quarter, we'll be opening the front counters in Ryde on the Isle of Wight, which Councillor Lucioni, I know that you are very engaged with me on, thank you. Totton as well, Councillor Paul, and also Yateley in North East Hampshire as well. And I was up there just a couple of weeks ago having a look at that. April, of course, I was really mostly electioneering, as you would expect. I did, however, chair a round table with the British Retail Consortium, so my thanks to them for pulling that together. I had national retailers there representing John Lewis, Next, Asda, Tesco, Aldi, Lidl, like lots of the supermarkets, but also some of the big clothing, as I say, Next and John Lewis and shops like that as well. There is a whole amount of serious and organised crime that's going on, particularly with supermarkets. There is a real market for stealing baby milk, SMA, because there's a real shortage of it in China and in Asian countries, and so there are orders being placed by organised crime gangs where shoplifters, thieves will go into shops still to order, and so if you go into certain supermarkets now, you may well see some of these products that have got codes on them or in plastic boxes to be released at the till. That is the reason why. A whole lot of stuff going on, and the real push here for me is around the crackdown on shoplifting, which, as I mentioned, the Chief Constable and I are very aligned on, and we have seen a 78% increase in our charge rate in shoplifting over the last quarter because the force are putting so much more focus on that now. In terms of moving on then into May, I was really pleased to be able to fund, as I said in the report here, mental health coordinators and support staff to be based in the control room. The 101 and 999 core handlers are dealing with some extraordinary complex issues on the end of the telephone when people are calling, and actually having those specially trained staff employed by our health partners across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight is key. The partnership, especially Councillor Bound, I know that you're on the Integrated Care Board, so working with our health delivery partners across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight has been key, and that's working well. And if you want more information, I can go into that in due course. I've also been working with the chair of the LGA, and have attended a couple of LGA meetings with council leaders across the country, particularly those interested in adult social care, mental health services and public health. And there's a lot of work that's going on for local government partners to understand the pressure that police are on. We also saw in the month of May Operation Sceptre Week, which is the Knife Amnesty Week. It's national, happens twice a year, and we have the knife surrender bins across the country. We had a successful Op Sceptre Week again, actually Portsmouth Central, as I mentioned, Basingstoke. We had those bins in some of our key locations, particularly in the larger urban areas. Because of the success of how well they've done, real credit here to Southampton City Council, who actually I have to say are often on the front foot on most things when it comes to community safety and crime, and they have approached the force, and we've now agreed to have 3 permanent knife surrender bins in Southampton, and if that works well, then we will be rolling that out across the county. They've literally gone in the last 2 weeks, so thank you to colleagues from Southampton for that as well. In terms of the remainder of May and going into June, well, clearly the prison situation and the prison space crisis has been a problem. That has become obviously a problem as well then for policing. And so there have, I did attend a National Criminal Justice Board meeting I think it was actually a week to the day after the general election. It was the following Thursday. And that the National Criminal Justice Board is chaired by the Lord Chancellor, who is a new Labour Lord Chancellor called Shabana Mahmood. I'm happy to go into more detail about prison spaces and the effects on Hampshire and the Isle of Wight Constabulary and our custody, if any of you want to know more about that when we move into questions. There is a plan in place. It's tricky between now and October, but from that point onwards, for various reasons, things will get better. And if you want more information, I'll go into it. June was Volunteers Week. Just to say to our volunteers who support us in Hampshire and the Isle of Wight Constabulary, I mean, thank you so much, because we literally couldn't do what we do without them. Also, June was important for me because it was the launch of my police and crime plan, and that is in total 10-week. 10-week consultation, finishes on the 19th of August. And we have gone to various different organisations to promote the consultation period, because I really want to know from other people clearly what they want in their police and crime plan. I was very fortunate in having one of the largest uptakes in 2021 when I consulted on my police and crime plan in the summer period when I first became the Police and Crime Commissioner. But so far it's going well, and again, if you want more detail on the who's and how we're promoting it, then I'm happy to answer questions about that in due course as well. And then July was the getting some of the money out, the £500,000 that I put aside for antisocial behaviour projects. I had, I think, 37 applications in total, and I think there's still a few more coming in. But we have now agreed 25 projects. That money is either been paid or is about to be transferred to the organisations. It's been hugely successful, and it has been oversubscribed. And I think that you can see from the number of applications, and actually the geographical spread has been pretty good as well. I've been very impressed with that. I've done quite a lot of going around and talking to people, many of those of you are in this room who will have heard me talk about the ASB fund and how to get bids into that if you have issues in your wards, or to members of parliament, or to parish councils. So I'm really pleased to see a cross-section of types of bids and organisations or individuals who are asking for money for stuff as well. July was also important for me because I completed the purchase of the freehold of the former Barclays Bank in Petersfield Town Square, which you know will become a new police station. I'm not sure who was happier about the police station completing, me or my head of estates, because I think I became a thorn in his side in the end by asking him almost weekly, have we completed? It was a very delayed completion, which if you want me to go into, I will do, but I don't think you probably will. But anyway, we're looking at an opening of probably maybe April or May next year. But from my perspective, as soon as it can get done, and the contractors are ready to get started now, so they're going to be doing some of the preliminary works in the next couple of weeks. So that's really good news. Beyond that, when after the general election, so into the beginning of July, the Home Secretary called a meeting with all police and crime commissioners on the Sunday after the general election on the Thursday, so literally day 3 in the job. There's an awful lot of ground we need to cover. As I've told the panel before, I have been meeting with her for several months in preparation anyway with my national role. And then I spent that first week of the new government, I was in London for the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at national meetings. And so we did get a chance she came and spoke to all police and crime commissioners and deputy mayors at that point as well, as did Diana Johnson, the new policing minister, who had formerly been chair of the Home Affairs Select Committee, so someone that I sort of knew to say hello to. So it's good that we're not starting from a standing stop in Hampshire in terms of ongoing relationships with the new government. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have about pledges, what they're saying, how they're going to deliver it, as much as I know, if you want me to, when we get into questions. And then finally, Police Bravery Awards in London. I did attend the Police Bravery Awards with the Chief Constable 2 weeks ago as well, and I'm delighted to confirm that there was an extraordinary job in Hampshire. It was in Gosport, actually, which involved 5 very brave officers going to a home of someone who had a live, viable firearm in his hand, which was then pointed at them. And he also had a viable IOD device strapped to his stomach. And this has all been in the press, so I'm not saying anything I shouldn't do. And he did detonate it. And the incredible bravery of those 5 officers who, with the exception of, I think, 2, were pretty new in service, I know will be something that will stay with them all for their whole career, or for the whole of their lives. And they were the South East regional winners. And that's why they were put forward for the main national award. They were a very, very close runner-up. It went to the Metropolitan Police for an extraordinary job that they dealt with as well last year, the main job. And then finally, 2 days ago, I launched the Is Your Child Safe campaign. And this was actually the idea of the County Council, Councillor Ros Chad, about 2 years ago, where she approached me and said, I think it would be great if we can do something over the summer holidays around where are your kids, who are they hanging out with, do you know what they're doing when they leave the house at 10 in the morning and don't come home until 7 or 8, you know, is your child safe, look out for these signs, know what they're doing. And so we ran that again last year, it's very successful, and we're running it this year in conjunction with almost all of the public sector organisations across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. So thank you to you and your councils for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. I've got lots of questions, but I'll always ask mine last. So I think it's down to the panel now. So who would like to ask a question?
Thanks very much for that, Donna. That was really, really very good. I've just got one question, and that was around what you said about the knives and the knives bin. I mean, I think we're all aware that knives seem to be, something that a lot of the kids are choosing to carry for whatever reason they carry it. So my question is, though, who is it that is actually surrendering these knives, into the bins? You've said it has been quite an effective strategy. I just wonder, who is it? Is it the kids?
I think it's a mixture. Parents, children, care workers, foster parents. It's a whole load of people. And also, even not related to young people as well. Just if you've got knives in your house and you think, I've bought some new knives now, how do you get rid of an old knife? It's not safe to put it into a black sack because someone could hurt themselves when they're picking it up. So a whole load of people. They've been successful. I think we had over 460 knives surrendered across Hampshire in 1 week during Opceptor Week back in May. So yeah, a whole mixture of people.
Was there somebody this side that wanted to? Oh, Alan, sorry.
Right, it works. Thank you for the update on it. It's very interesting. And I've got 2 small questions. One on shoplifting. I'm still getting lots of reports from the retail community that they're having difficulty getting a response from police. Okay, if that may be from waiting a long time on the 111 service. and I know it's one of the priorities, and I wonder if there's any update you've got on the improvements that were planned and are being made to that service. And secondly, it's on estates. I welcome the move to neighbourhood policing and the opening of front counters, and I know you're working on that, but it's about having the front counters in the right place. And you know exactly, you actually introduced the Yateley police station as North East Hampshire. It is almost in Berkshire. Okay. It's very nice for people a long way away, but not for the main communities and heart. So are you still looking in your estates programme for other sites? Because I've already given 2 to your estates manager for the Fleet and Church Crookham community.
Thank you very much, Councillor Oliver. So, yeah, look, shoplifting has not been a crime type that has been managed well, in my opinion, by the force over recent years. And last year, when the Chief Constable started in February, there were a whole load of burning bridges that I wanted him to look at, which he's done. One of which was the 101, changing the operating model of the force, bringing in local bobbies, as you quite rightly have already identified, rebuilding neighbourhood policing, stopping the abstraction rates of neighbourhood officers having to respond to 101 and 999 calls. And we're really, really getting there now. And in fact, actually, the Chief and I had a 2.5 hour catch up yesterday about a whole lot of stuff. And I always say to him when I see him, what were the scores on the doors? That means 101 yesterday. So on Wednesday, 1 minute 42 seconds was the average call wait time. So the 101, we had a bit of a blip about 2 or 3 weeks ago because of the summer demand, which often happens. The SLA, the service level agreement, agreed between the Chief and I for the summer period. Call wait time on the 101 is 6 minutes, but during normal times 5 minutes. But they've been achieving sort of 3.5 since October last year. But as I say, on Wednesday, 1 minute 42, that was the most recent data he had. It's performing well at the moment. Back to the shoplifting, this is why in March we had a big push on it. It's why I'm doing a whole lot of stuff. I really hope the public support this being a priority in the police and crime plan. What the Chief has done to sort this out is brought in neighbourhood enforcement teams and town centre teams in the bigger urban areas, so that there are police officers based all the time in town centres so they can respond when that's going on. I've got a meeting on Monday, and I've also met with Shopwatch, UK PAC, who some of you will have heard of, who work with shop retailers. I've been over to the Isle of Wight, Karen, in your patch, and met with Sainsbury's, Morrison's, a whole load. I did that just a few weeks ago. So I'm looking at some investment into the technology so that they can share information between them. They've used DISC, some of the high street business improvement districts, but actually we're looking at a slightly more like a step up from that now, something that's better, something that makes it much easier for them to upload crime reports via an app as opposed to 101 online or whatever, and where they can also upload CCTV from that app as well. So it's just going to be a much more streamlined process of helping retailers when they are busy, and perhaps only 3 or 4 of them in a small co-op, for example, taking one person off for half an hour to sit on the phone, give a statement, give information, upload CCTV. It's those things that are putting them off at the moment. But the most important thing is the local bobby should also be interacting and feeding in with their local communities to also help to make sure those crime reports are getting done. In terms of the front counter situation, I would love, as you know, Fleet would be the optimum location for that front counter to deliver my pledge that every district in Hampshire has at least one police station where the public can access and go in. Yateley was the one that we owned that was the easiest and the most accessible to get you a front counter as soon as possible. I would really like to buy a freehold in Fleet. The sites that you sent through, thank you so much for doing that, because as you and a surveyor, you are my 2 main conduits to feeding in sites at the moment, so thank you very much. They weren't appropriate because of the lack of parking particularly, and I think one of the sites, I can't remember completely, but I think one of the sites then wasn't available when we looked into it further. So please keep sending them through. I really would love something, and if it's not completely on the high street and has to be somewhere at one of the peripheries, then that's what we're going to have to go with. But I really am committed to still having something in the middle of your patch as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Alan. Councillor Craig.
Thank you. One of my questions already answered, which was how many knives were handed in. That's quite a lot, 460 plus. Do we know where those, or can we be told where those 3 permanent bins are so that we can actually advertise them? Because like you say, I know that people have gotten rid of their own kitchen knives, they replaced them after 20 plus years, and they're like, what do I do with them? So that would be really handy to hand that out as well. Police stations, you said you've got 7, there's going to be another 7. I think you said Ryde, Totton and Yateley. Do you know what the other 4 are yet? You've said about 500,000 extra funding on projects that you've done. Can you just give us an idea of what kind of project? Any one of them? And is your kids safe? Is that open to reporting things within youth? We've got a spate going around where children are out playing, sort of 11, 12 years old, and older children are just passing by and punching them. We've had quite a few of those recently, so can that be used on the Is Your Child Safe scheme as well, so we can get that out there? But I should have said right from the start, thank you for getting this report in early. It was really, really useful and gave me a chance to read it through a couple of times to get those questions written down, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Craig. Can I just confirm this? A 500k, Is Your Kid Safe, bin locations and the front counters? Yes, thank you. I'm going to cover the ones I can, and then I'm going to hand to Marisa, if you don't mind, Chair, me inviting Marisa Charles up, my head of comms, because she is leading and supporting me in a number of these areas. So the 500k, it's been really interesting. We've had organisations like Y Services or Motivate or Yellow Brick Road, like, can you fund a project for us to run a summer play scheme for youth diversion with 14 to 16-year-olds in a specific geographical location? I will then check with the police through the team to make sure that the neighbourhood teams, let's say in Andover, in Aldershot, wherever it might be, agree that that is a hotspot ASB area. We funded the refurb of a bus for a charity in Gosport, which is, it's like a mobile community centre, mobile youth hub, and it will go around and it will, it's helping to keep kids off the street. It was used previously. The engine was broken. Some money was secured from a regional grant for the engine, but they needed to re-tidy up the inside and then have a bit of money to be able to give them lunch or drinks or whatever if they were coming over the summer period. I funded beach football on the Isle of Wight, carrying on in Ryde, Newport. No, Ryde. Newport doesn't have a beach. What else have we funded? So some of it is youth related, detached youth work, and some of it will be actually to purchase, say, something. So like a charity asking for a PlayStation or whatever, that sort of thing, to engage kids. But what we're doing is, as well, with all the grants that we give out, they are on my website, so you can have a look at them and go and have a look. We can also send you, if it's helpful, a list of all of them, which I think we've done that in the past with previous grants rounds. I can send you through a list so you can see in your patch what I have funded, because it might be that you want to go and visit that charity and see how they're getting on, or ask them, if the money's been spent yet. So I'm very happy to share with you the list of the who's, how much, it will say how much. And crudely, the money was like from about sort of £2,500-3,000 up to about 20-25k was a sort of, so some people literally asked for £800 for a bike for a youth worker to be able to get between Sandown and Shanklin, for example. But you can have a look at that, so we can get that sent through if that would be helpful. The bin locations, I'm going to do the front counters and then I'll leave Marisa to backfill me on bins, and then she can cover the Is Your Child Safe, if that's okay. So in terms of the front counters, so we have done Parkgate and, as I say, and Portsmouth Central already. We've got Totton, Yateley and Ryde coming up. We've got a new joint police and fire station opening on the 4th of September in Cosham. So it's actually owned by the fire brigade, but neighbourhood policing are going to be moving in there with some detectives and a couple of other specialist teams. So that's going to be in Cosham on the big roundabout in front of QA Hospital. We have got Petersfield, as I've just mentioned. We've got Gosport that is going to be reopening. I'm racking my brains now. I think that covers them basically. So that was our phase 1, and then phase 2, we're now looking at things like Fleet. Your Eastleigh, beg your pardon. Sorry, Eastleigh is one of the 10. So that is a commitment that, like, we are already agreed we're going to do that. So looking at I updated you at the town council meeting last week, but for others, we put an offer in on a site. It wasn't accepted. The surveys came back with a lot of work needed. We put a revised offer in, it was rejected. We've looked at another site, and I understand we're looking at other sites that Eastleigh Borough Council own as well, which there is a site visit, I think, next week again. And the problem with Eastleigh is very much the same as Fleet, whereas ideally we want to be where the footfall is in the high street, but then having the parking for the police vehicles, because if you park the police vehicles too far away, they get vandalised. So we have to keep them quite close to the police station base. So that's been a challenge for Eastleigh, the same as Fleet, because of the design and layout. Well, it's like all high streets. You don't often have loads of parking around the back, do you? It's not the nature of how they're built. But we are definitely committed to wanting to do that one. And then I know it's Shirley and Southampton City Council, but I'll allow Marisa to do the bin locations if that's okay.
Thank you. Yeah, sure. So the bin locations are Shirley, Thornhill, and in the city. So Shirley is on Redcar Street. It's next to the library by Shirley Precinct car park. Thornhill, it's on Warburton Road. And in the city, it's Sussex Road next to Palmerston Park. Just if I may add, on the announcements that we've produced this time, I have included links in there so that you are able to click on those and provide more information. And hopefully within that link within there, it does give you the 3 places where it was. Similarly to the ASB fund, at the end of that press release, it has the 27 projects that have been funded and which areas they are as well. So if there is more information that you'd like, do have a look on there. Page down, have a look through, but by all means do contact me if you'd like further information on a specific project that you see that takes your interest there.
Is your child safe?
Yeah, can you just, sorry, Councillor Craig, can you just repeat the question you had on is your child safe, just so that I can understand it?
It was just whether you could actually put it on there to kind of report this younger children between 10 and 12 going out, and it's parents trying to give them the responsibility to go out and actually do things before they start secondary school. They're going out and there's older children, when they're playing, the older children just coming past on their bikes and punching them in the face and things like that. So we've had a spate of them in and around the southern parishes that have been, I've been assured, been reported, but it's whether that is your child safe, whether there's something on there that they can use to actually report it.
Yeah, so the Is Your Child Safe campaign is definitely aimed at those parents, caregivers and guardians if they are seeing anything like that to report that to police, and it also gives you spotting the signs. We've shared a whole media stakeholder pack, which each of the 4 councils, so Hampshire County Council, Isle of Wight Council, Portsmouth and Southampton, in terms of being able to reach their parents and networks that way as well. So we are pushing that message further out there. It can absolutely be used for anything like that, any sort of behaviour that you're concerned around with young people that are escalating, of course.
Just apologise, I didn't realise that those were links. I just thought they were, because they were in blue, they're highlighted, so I didn't actually click on them. That's me being not savvy with computers, really, so apologies.
Thank you very much. I've got Councillor Lambert now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that update. That's really helpful, and it's really nice to see that so much is being done across the entire county. And you talked a bit about shoplifting and some work that's going around shoplifting. Something that I'm particularly interested, there's a particular problem in Southampton, is that abuse against shop workers that goes hand in hand with the shoplifting. Can you talk to us a little bit about what's being done to kind of curb that antisocial behaviour, particularly against those retail workers?
Well, thank you so much for the question. It is absolutely appalling, the assaults. And actually, some of them, assault kind of plays it down a bit. Some of them are really quite bad assaults, and some of them going into ABH. And we have had incidents of GBH as well. Really awful things. And shopkeepers, you'll notice so many of them have still got their plastic screens up. And that's where they've had, tins of food thrown at them and grabbing over the counter, grabbing them, punching them in the face because they won't give them cash, or some of the stories are truly horrific, and it does tend to be in that convenience store much more than the supermarkets themselves. It is really bad, but I'm really pleased that the new government, you probably would have seen through the King's speech, have announced that they are going to introduce Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, has secured some parliamentary time in this first session of Parliament for a new crime and justice bill. And within that, she has confirmed, when I met with her and also through the King's Speech, I've seen it backed up, but she did tell us beforehand, a new offence to be created of assault against shop workers. So I was thinking, I couldn't think of the word then, assaults against shop workers, particularly because at the moment it would be a normal common assault, ABH, and the aggravating factor may be that someone's working in a co-op, for example. But actually it's going to be specifically defined now in terms of those assault offences, which is really, really welcome. And it's something that I've spoken about at the panel before. It's something that I've spoken about publicly. It has been discussed at the National Policing Board, I don't know, for the last year, 18 months. And one of the other things that's happening within shop thefts and crime on high streets, just following on from Councillor Oliver's question as well, is around live facial recognition. So there's two types of facial recognition. You've got the retrospective, where you can run it through a database and the police can upload people of interest, their images, and then through AI, the software is amazing at measuring your eye to nose and mouth and the measurements of your face, and then running it through a system in a split second and telling the police if that is a person of interest or not. But then the live facial recognition is where you're doing it either through the equivalent of mobile speed vans, where you have a police vehicle with its back up and they'll have a camera there and everyone that's walking past it scans everyone's face. And if you, like you and I, walk past, it would just delete our faces straight away because we're not people of interest, we hope. But if we were, it would then alert to the police officers in the van or out on the street, because there'll be people, could be plainclothes, could be in uniform around, and they might come up and tap you on the shoulder and want to have a word with you about something, perhaps. And also on body-worn video. So there is the technical ability to have it also done through body-worn video. The technology's been around for a couple of years now. The slowness in this being rolled out comprehensively across police forces has been the legislation that sits behind it. So the RIPA legislation, which so many of you will be aware of from your councils, particularly those of you that are operating CCTV networks, because you'll be aware of the responsibility you have around the Regulatory Investigatory Powers Act of recording people without just cause. So there's been a bit of catch up in terms of some governance around this that the government have had to work their way through, but policing is chomping at the bit to roll this out, and we've just taken delivery of a whole load of new, or I should say in September, by over the 2 months between September and November, we'll have brand new body-worn videos rolled out to all of our police officers in Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, and also Thames Valley. It's a joint project, and the ability, the software, it's already there, already built in, so we can do that as and when the regulatory powers authorise chief constables to do that.
You're going to be after the vice chair, so I've got a list. I've been keeping count for everybody.
Thank you, Chairman. So firstly, I'd just like to say congratulations actually to both Becky and Donna for very well run campaigns. Congratulations, Donna, for your second term. I haven't got any questions, I've just got observations. So thank you for your early sight of the report. Even earlier will be much, much better. Really good as a member for a very rural ward to see your update on rural crime, so thank you. And particularly pleased to see your position with the National Police Chiefs Council on non-priority arrests. So really, really pleased to see that. So thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman.
Trevor, thank you.
Right, thank you, Chairman. Good morning, Donna, and congratulations on your reappointment as well. I'm slightly straying out of your report, actually, but as you know, I'm quite sort of passionate about where we are with police recruitment. And I wonder if we could perhaps have an update, perhaps not today, but later. And also, the new government are talking about increasing police numbers, etc. I wonder if you've got any news on that as well, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cartwright, I was about to call you Councillor Cartwright then, but that would be a blast from the past. So yeah, we have obviously hit the 650 police officers, as you know, in March this year. The new budget started on the 1st of April, which then took us into the new funding period, and the pledge that I've made and the funding that's put aside this year for 75 more. So the commitment I have from the Chief is that we'll be at the plus 75 by March, April of next year. So that would put us on plus 725 from January 2020 when we started the Uplift programme, but you'll remember that we still haven't met our 2010 numbers yet, and we're about 260 odd down on that if you factor in the extra 700, if you factor in the extra 75 as well. So 725, we need to get 760 something or thereabouts. So we're getting there. We're and with the extra, they've sort of been trying to recruit a little bit over as well, just to backfill and give some buffer zone as people are retiring and leaving, which literally the police numbers change in Hampshire every single day because someone will retire on every day of the week. So you often have this very strange scenario where today's number is this, tomorrow number is that, and then a new cohort will start. So it ebbs and flows up and down, but it's basically generally, obviously, trajectory is up. In terms of the new government, yes, they've confirmed 13,000 more police officers and PCSOs. A national finance meeting I was in a couple of days ago, and our chief finance officer, Richard Croucher, was also in a meeting where they've started to work on the funding of 8,000, particularly, I think, in the next 1 to 2 years, so almost like a police uplift Mark II. The Home Secretary is very candid. She said this publicly, so I'm not saying anything that I shouldn't repeat. That there really is not any money to pay for this stuff. So we're going to have to be looking at efficiency drives and how we can get more out of the system to pay for some of these things. So we are currently working with her in the national space on through Blue Light Commercial, which is a company, limited company, which is owned by police and crime commissioners, on how we procure vehicles, uniforms, forensic services, etc., how we can squeeze more out of the system. So we are waiting on the detail. We've had no specific detail yet about money, the whens, the hows. A number of the projects that we've been funding, and you will know from your town boards, those of you that have got town boards, for example, actually the only one we have in our patch is in fact on the Isle of Wight in Ryde. So the new government, that's currently on hold at the moment because the government are looking at their priorities across all departments. The key ones for me really at the moment are around prisons, which is the Ministry of Justice, as opposed to the Home Office. Of course, the police recruitment numbers from the Home Office, our violent reduction unit funding, whether that will continue beyond the 31st of March next year, and of course the funding for victim services. But they have made it very clear, the new government, in the King's speech, that violence against women and girls, and really trying to halve, bring that down by around 50% during the 5 years of government, a tall order and a big ask, but you know what, we have to have the passion and the focus to do it, and therefore I think victim services funding should be one of the most protected, touch wood, out of all of it, but let's wait and see. So the budget in the end of October, beginning of November will give us the information there, and the government are obviously working on that now.
Absolutely.
Yes, thanks for that, Donna. The other question I really wanted to ask was, obviously we've recruited an awful lot of policemen, over this last few months or years even. Are we still confident that, I just wonder if the bucket is empty now, because obviously, it's a continual programme all the time where the recruits are coming forward.
It's not easy, as you can imagine, because in the first couple of years it was great because all those people that had wanted to be in the police for years were there. Obviously you have young people graduating, leaving university, finishing college, etc., working through. Those that have perhaps got 2 or 3 years post leaving school as well. The Chief Constable is also, you'll remember me talking to you before about military recruitment, working closely with the armed forces. We are home to the British Army and the Royal Navy, obviously, in Hampshire. So really targeting military recruitment for people that have served King and Queen and country for most of their adult lives, used to working in that command structure organisation. So the transition into policing, we need to make it much simpler because it should be a natural bedfellow for them. However, because of the length of vetting, training, the whole recruitment end to end from applying to starting can sometimes be 6-7 months, and they can walk out of a job in the military and walk straight into another job within a week or two, and that's our challenge, is the speed at getting them through. The backlogs in vetting across the country are causing issues, and it's an ongoing conversation that Kate and I have with the Chief and the Deputy Chief Constable on an almost monthly basis.
Councillor Williams.
I was encouraged to hear about the funding for ASB and the various projects that have been supported. I've got one particularly that's causing me a bit of a nightmare as Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood Services, in that a resident applied for a speed gun. He was a resident, now councillor, a speed gun and a speed indicator device. The application that he made was for £6,000, but having reviewed it, there's no granularity about the costs that he would be expecting, for these devices. But also, there's no sort of feedback from yourselves after the money's been granted as to what the limitations around that are. So we're having these big debates about who's going to be responsible to make, to put it up, take it down, whether it could be put into the borough sort of collection of SIDS. And I just wondered, what is the criteria for submitting a bid, and how do you evaluate them if, for example, people aren't providing a breakdown of costs? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So some things we will know the cost of automatically because we're dealing with it a lot, and some we won't. So we'll have to do a bit more probity if we think, what is that money for? But ultimately, this is not me tendering and asking for something to be done and therefore, getting different quotes in. This is about the community. This is about enabling the community to help themselves as well, which is what it's designed for. So yes, we do checks. I will go out and do visits. The commissioning team will go out and check charities as well. But we are ultimately working on trust and good faith here as well to say, look, Y Services, you've asked us to run this summer scheme programme. We will do some checks with the local bobbies and with the local authority there to make sure that it did happen and those sorts of things. But largely, the quality of it, if we get bad feedback from the local police, kids have gone there, so it's really boring. All they do is give them pizza, sit them in a room and expect them to play on a PlayStation. Then we log that, and I have done that with a few charities, and I won't name them because it's not fair. But there are quality assurance that we do in our own way to make sure that money is not being not spent to the best of its ability, if I can put it that way. So in terms of Speedwatch, we know that Speedwatch equipment is about 6k. So we know that because obviously the neighbour policing teams, the road policing unit, we know the cost of that kit. So when people do put in for it, clearly the local neighbourhoods team need to be aware. They will go out and do assessments of the local area and agree the locations where they can do it, because it has to be safe for the community Speedwatch people as well. And then those particular locations for that ward, for example, then are fed back to the force, so that the people in the force that issue the letters when you've been caught going at 35 and a 30, they know that it's from one of the regulated spots that's been signed off and approved by the local policing team. So that's how the police do it from their perspective to check. In terms of who looks after the equipment, whose house it's at, what council it's at, what community centre it gets stored in, that is really for the community to manage. It's not a policing scheme, it's a community scheme led by the community for the community to work out and organise their volunteers and how often and who's going to do it and what the rota is. So I don't want my office to be prescriptive in saying it has to be run like this. I want to be enabling the community to be part of that speed reduction solution. But it sounds like there might be a little bit of hand-holding and support required in the scheme you're talking about. There are some brilliant ones. One is in Joan, in your ward. I mean, like the model of how to do it. There is a gentleman who's been given an award from me, nominated by Fareham Borough Council previously, and he is in Parkgate or Salisbury.
With funding and the right equipment, he's covering pretty much the western wards. So Loxheath, Warsash, Parkgate, Salisbury Green. So the group has expanded, and they're out 5-6 days a week.
Now that is on the extreme of like being really into it, but what I could do is link you up so that your coordinator or coordinators could have a chat to them and their group and just work out. I mean, they've been doing it for years now, but work out how they organise, how they do it. The feedback I do often get, and I actually had this feedback last week, and actually when I was with Councillor Craig at a meeting, we had some of this feedback, didn't we, last week, that the intention and the passion can be there, but then it does wane a bit because, it is a real commitment to do it. I suspect that they've created a bit of a community, a bit of a social thing that comes from it as well, with the group that like doing it together regularly. But if there is any help and support we can give, I'm really happy to work with you offline on that.
I'm actually trying to set one up in Ryde as well, so that's handy. I've written down the notes if you'll contact. Councillor Bound.
Thank you very much. Donna, I feel the need to articulate this because I think it's something that you and I know is the elephant in the room, and it feels a bit like the elephant's hiding behind the curtain. So we need to invite the elephant out that says we've talked a lot about funding, but we should also remember the elephant in our particular room in Hampshire and the Isle of Wight is the fair funding gap. I think my memory serves me right, that's between 42 and 43 million pounds. That equates to over 800 officers. And actually, I didn't know whether the new government had articulated anything as far as a discussion about changing and understanding the fair funding gap, or whether that's something that everybody's pretending the elephant doesn't exist.
So, no, we have absolutely spoken to him about it already. So on that Thursday, it was a week to the day after the general, when Yvette Cooper came and met with, we had our general meeting, a quarterly general meeting in London, which runs for 2 days, well, once a quarter, which I chair as the chair of the APCC, and that was we put about 8 things to her, and that was one of them, the funding formula gap, because it's oven baked, ready to go, done, as you know. We were very frank with her around the previous setup at number 10, appetite around doing it or not, and she's well aware. I've spoken to her about it in preparation before the general as well. She didn't give any she said, look, I know, I'm aware, we do want to make sure funding is fair, and from our perspective, for those of you that aren't aware of this, Councillor Bound's absolutely right, it is about £44 million a year funding. Well, it was last year, it could even be more than that now. It is that amount, and so in terms of a value for money force, in terms of what we deliver per head of population for the per capita cost that we get from the government, we are one of the best, I think, if not the best, value for money forces in the country. So our equivalent, in policing, you have something called MSGs, most similar group forces. Those for us will be ones that have got big urban centres like the cities, plus they're very rural, and not dissimilar populations. So Essex, for example, is one of our MSGs, as is Durham. Durham gets exactly £44 million a year more than we do, and think of what we could do with that money. So it has been a battle that I've been fighting for the last couple of years. There is no commitment right now, but they're not committing to anything because they're so new in the job. They're having to work out what is going on, get all their treasury briefings and everything. So I will keep the panel posted on that one, but thanks for raising it, because it absolutely is the elephant behind the curtain.
Okay, I'm just bringing in one more, and then I'm just going to wrap up with my questions to the next councillor. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. It's a quick question on the 101 service. I very much appreciate that you've said there's been a vast improvement on the time taken to respond to calls. But the time my question relates to, I was canvassing in Portsmouth for the local elections prior to May, and 101 was raised on the doorstep quite a lot. People were completely complaining all the time. They rang 101, they waited for 20 minutes, got fed up, and they just gave up ringing. But there's one thing, I think it emphasises a training need, and it's anecdotal, it's only one incident, but I was in the Nelson Ward area speaking to people, and I came across a group of people standing on a doorstep, introduced myself, and I said, any questions, any problems? They said, yes, funny you should say that. He says, we've got an old boy lives down the road, elderly gentleman, we haven't seen him for a week or so. He said his car's in the car park, we banged on his door, haven't got a response. So I said, have you rung the police? Yes, we have rung the police. We rang 101. We were told to call the ambulance service. And I thought, well, that's not very good advice, because even if the advice was followed, they called the ambulance would arrive. If they got no response, they couldn't force an entry, so the police would be called anyway. I know it's only one incident, but I hear this time and time again where poor advice is given on 101. So I just wonder what's been done on training.
Thank you very much indeed, and that is very good feedback, because there is a real pushback to medical services because of, as I mentioned before, about the mental health crisis, but that is a very specific incident, and I agree with you, they can't break the door down, they've got no lawful route to do that as the ambulance service. So you're right, the police, and having been a police officer for your whole career, you will absolutely know that. The 101 has improved massively. Last year, I put the Chief Constable on official notice of service failure around an area by formally, only time I've ever done it, by writing to him about the 101, and I updated the panel at the time. And since, he was new to the job as well. He'd only been with us a handful of months, and he knew it was an issue before he came here. And he knew it was one of my red lines of things that had to be fixed. Since October last year, there's been a massive amount of over-recruitment. They're now running at 110, 150% of quota because they get turnover. Lots of people in contact management, as you will know, want to then go on and become a police officer. It's a conduit to becoming a police officer, and we've seen a lot of that. Secondly, because they were under capacity, the stress levels, we were then losing more people than we normally would do because they just didn't want to work in that really stressful environment. We've had loads of IT issues, which you'll be aware of with the CMP rollout. It's been not great, but we've got there now with that. And so actually we opened a new call centre. I don't know if you know about this. We opened a new call centre in Portsmouth in the PIC. So we took a part of the PIC and moved a team out, and that is now an overflow for Netley and for Southampton Central. So the 101 and 909s are now being answered in Portsmouth PIC, the same as they are in Southampton PIC. And then, as you know, the then deployers are then in Netley. So we've got, and the reason we did that with Portsmouth is because the recruitment market in Southampton, because you've got so many insurance companies and people that are still working on telephone-based work, the market was really saturated and we were struggling to fill the vacancies. At one point we had over 45 vacancies out of a head count of 280 odd, so it was a quite a big chunk. By going to Portsmouth, different employment market and a new batch of people that you can draw on from, it's been really, really successful. So if you ever want to go and have a look at that, I can meet you there and take you around. You can sit and watch the screens, and you've been in control rooms many times before anyway. But if you wanted to, you're welcome to have a look. In terms of the other point you've then touched on there around customer service. So the force are doing some really good things, but victim satisfaction is something that all police forces, all chiefs, deputies, PCCs will look at quite a lot. And it doesn't reflect the great work that's being done. And I think often it's about the way a message is given. So, for example, hello, I've just got home and my son's mountain bike's been stolen from our garage. Okay, right, so is there any CCTV? No. Did any neighbours see the person coming and going? No. Any other clue as to who it might be? No. Right, so you and I both know, in terms of an actionable line of inquiry, the call handler is going to very quickly deduce we're at a bit of a brick wall here. Right, I'm going to give you a crime reference number. I'm sorry, we won't be sending anyone out to this. There's your crime reference, claim on your insurance. And that's basically the message. However, if I said, I'm really sorry about this, I'm going to give you a crime reference number. At the moment, there are no obvious lines of inquiry. However, it will get fed into the daily management meeting of your neighbourhoods team tonight when they start at 6 o'clock, tomorrow, the next day. So this will be held by the local team in Hedge End where you live. Also, if there's a spate of bike thefts in your area over the next weeks or months, this could well be drawn on that, and the police may well come back to you at that point if it becomes a spate and they have a line to go on. And you'd go, thanks ever so much, put the phone down thinking, well, okay, they've got nothing they can do right now, but at least they're going to do something if they can, because you and I both know that is actually what happens. That's not what they get told, not what you get told as a victim of crime. So when I explain that to people, they go, oh, that's actually really quite good. Why didn't the police just tell me that? And I'm like, I know. So we're working on this whole customer service point. The chief is absolutely on it. And I think now they've got the capacity in contact management, they can start to finesse and give the service that perhaps you and I would have wanted them to have done for, the whole time. So that blunt message, I mean, actually that was just bad advice by the sounds of it around call an ambulance, because actually probably the police really did need to go and check there. But I'm hoping with the local bobbies as well that there is going to be more capacity. We've got those 99 dedicated police officers at the moment. There's going to be a review going on in September, and with the extra police officers that we're going to be getting through HomeSec and our own 75, there'll be more going into local bobbies as well. For the southern end of your ward, in Charles Dickens ward, there are 3 local bobbies, named local police officers for Charles Dickens because of the crime data there. So their mobile phone numbers, names and email addresses are all available on the Constabulary website, whereas, for example, Baffins and Fratton, you've got 2, kind of crudely 1 for each, but Charles Dickens, you've got 3. But I know that only covers part of your ward. The other part will then be shared, I suspect, with Hilsey. But they are all on the Constabulary website if you want to have a look.
Thank you, colleagues. So I'm not going to take up too much more of your time, so I've written quite a lot and we've touched on some stuff. But the antisocial behaviour, the 25 projects, I presume that will be in the grants list when we get that. Is it a separate one?
As Marisa said, I hadn't realised as well that it's embedded in the Commissioner's update that you had from me. So there's a hyperlink that's already there that she's added for the link. So if you have a look at it, it should give you everything you need.
That's great, because I'm national lead on ASB for LGA, so I can feed that back when it needs to be. That's great. The other thing I would like to ask, when we were talking about the crime plan, go right back to the beginning when you were speaking about, so we're in the consultation. How's the consultation going? Because I remember last year we did have quite a few people take part, and now you're re-elected for a second time, so I would expect more people to know who you are, and I know media is very good. How are we doing on it?
Really well, actually. So we've had I think just over 4,600 responses in the first 4 weeks, or 3.5 weeks. Yeah, 4 weeks now. And last time we got this number in total at the end of the 10 weeks. So we've already reached that number in 50% of the way through the consultation period. Obviously, you get a lot front loaded, so I'm not expecting us to get double that. But I think we should easily surpass what we got in 2021 when we consulted on the police and crime plan then. So, yeah.
So I'd really like to thank the public for taking part in that. So and ask colleagues to push that consultation through their networks. That would be great. So I was also going to touch on the beat bobbies, but you have done that. So I'm glad that working out. I know our local one is. And what I'd like to see in the future, we spoke about the 40% of sentencing, 40% through sentencing, people are going to be out of prison, etc. And how hard it is actually within our prisons. So maybe we can do something on that on a future meeting.
This is a really big issue. So for those that aren't aware, because of the prison space crisis, the SDS, the standard determinate sentence, at the moment, if you are well behaved in prison and you are not in a particularly high crime category in terms of your conviction, you are applicable for early release at 50% of your sentence. That has now been, or is about to be changed to 40% of sentence to make greater capacity in the prison system. It's not for all offenders. It won't be for people that have committed the worst kind of violent offences, high-risk domestic abuse offenders and sexual offenders. They will still serve their sentence as, in fact, they don't even do 50% anymore. Last government did change that to serving the whole of the sentence in the most extreme cases. There are new prisons coming online in October and November, one in Rutland and another one in the East Midlands somewhere. I can't remember the location now. And that will create around 700 new prison spaces in the male adult prison population. And it's actually there that the problem exists. But the SDS, the standard determinate sentence, changing to 40%, you can't just do it in the adult male prison population because it wouldn't be fair from an equalities perspective. So it is now going to have, it will also come into play into the youth offending and also female prison population as well. What does this mean for policing? Well, there is a national operation called Op Safeguard that's already in place, which means that 12 police forces across the country had to were asked to offer up a certain number of cells to the prison service should they need them in emergency circumstances. We were one of those because it was basically the largest forces. So you'll remember me telling you before that 12 cells at Basingstoke were offered up as part of Op Safeguard. I think that's been called upon maybe 3 times over the last 9-10 months that it's been in place. Maybe it might be about a year it's been in place actually. So not as often as you might think. Now all police forces are going to have to do that until October. But it's ebbing and flowing. It's being monitored literally on a daily basis. The other issue for policing is that you've got, people who are convicted of offences back out in communities sooner and quicker. Now, let's hope if they are managed properly and supported as they need to be, they won't go on and reoffend. But unfortunately, at the moment in this country, we still have a far too high percentage of offenders who come out and reoffend very quickly. Also, there's the consideration of the victims of crime who now will not have the reprieve that perhaps they've waited a long time for with an offender perpetrator being in prison. So that is also disappointing. I'm sure there will be some form of investigation, inquiry into why the prisons didn't get built quicker and sooner. I'm happy to update in due course, but of course you'll see stuff through the media, I'm sure anyway.
Would be great. So the grants for everybody, so everybody can visit people in their ward who have got grants and doing great projects. And also, I would really like, if it's appropriate, to say thank you to those policing constable from the panel, if colleagues would like us to do so. So thank you, Donna, for your time.
Thank you. And if you want their names, I can provide the names of the 5 of them. And if you want to send it through my office, any letter, we can forward it on to them for you as well. Thank you.
Okay, so colleagues, item 11, the Police and Crime Panel Annual Report. So members are presented with a draft annual report for 2023 to 24, circulated separate to the main agenda pack. Do members have any comments or questions? No. Okay, so the panel receive and agree the draft report. Can we have by affirmation? We're receiving that? Yeah. Thank you. And now the annual complaints report. The report outlines complaints made against the PCC during the period of June 23 to March 24, circulated separate. Do members have any comments? So again, we note that for information. Thank you very much. Item 13, the Police and Crime Panel financial monitoring on the budget agreement. So this paper is from the Finance Officer to the panel monitoring the Police and Crime Panel budget for 23-24 and part year performance against 24-25 budget and proposed budget for 25-26. So have you got any questions about this part? No? So the panel, so it's recommendations for this one, isn't it? So the panel is recommended to note the final financial position for 23-24, note the current performance against the budget for the financial year, and agree the proposed budget for the panel 25 to 26, subject to confirmation of the government grant in 25-26. So we note that, yeah? Everybody happy with that? Yeah, thank you very much, panel. Item 14, so Police and Crime Panel, we to do the legal support to the panel. This is a report to Democratic Services Officer to the panel, confirming the outcome of the tendering of the contract for the provision of legal support to the panel, following the previous contract expiring at the end of March 24. Do members have any questions? Alan.
Thank you, Chair. My only issue is that why is it a 1 year contract and not a 4 year contract? It just seems disingenuous to Portsmouth to say we have to renew it every year.
It's a good question. It does have extensions up to the 4 years. So it's expected that it will, assuming that the panel are happy with the advice that they've received, that contract can be extended up to the 4 years.
I understand that. It just looks like an administrative step you have to do every year, which is just seems you have enough to do.
Yeah, I think that was the advice we were given by procurement colleagues when the contract was being discussed. But I can look at it again. I can see if there's anything different we can do. But I think that's the position.
I don't have any particular issue with having you good colleagues review me every year, so it's not a real issue for me. I'm not entirely sure my practice would die on its feet if I wasn't appointed again, but there you go.
Also, remember we have new colleagues every year. They'd be changed, so it's quite nice that they get to see it, I suppose. And have any questions?
And I'm exceptionally cheap.
Just like to make an observation there about 4 years. It's also given you a very easy get-out clause should we not receive good and adequate legal advice within that year. In a previous life, I've actually been in great difficulties trying to terminate a 4-year contract that's based on the legal agreement that this type of committee runs on. So I think really the gold prize is a year and then to extend rather than 4 and try and abandon it halfway through. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Julie. That's a very good point. Thank you very much. So this is just for us to note. Item 5, the subcommittee appointments. Members are presented with a report from Democratic Services Officers outlining proposed arrangements for the complaints subcommittee. Do we have any comments about this? So we have to agree who's going on it. Yeah. So have we had any names or anything? So we need to have 5 members, an independent co-opted chair. There's only a certain amount of people can do that, isn't there? If I remember rightly.
For the previous year, Shirley Young chaired the complaints subcommittee, although it didn't need to meet in the past year. And it's been the practice so far to have an independent member chair the complaints committee and not have the chairman of the overall panel sit on that committee, so it has a degree of separation. So it could be for Shirley to continue to chair that group if she would like to, or whether Trevor Cartwright would express any interest in taking that on. It's for the panel to decide who wants to be appointed.
I propose Shirley if she's happy to do it again.
Yeah, I'm happy to continue. Yeah.
Who else was on it? Have we still got the same members on that were doing it before?
Councillor Woodward was one of the councillors that was on it previously, so there's at least one position that needs reappointing. And I think Councillor Tony Jones was on it previously from Labour, so we could have a new Labour representative. I'll just check. Hold on. Oh.
I was also a member, but am now a deputy. So therefore, there must be another vacancy.
So, anybody from Conservative want to go on to? Of course you can. Everybody's happy with that, so Vivienne, that's fine. Conservative? Who would like to go on from the...
Looking around. There we go.
Thank you very much. And Labour. Thank you very much, Becky. Okay, so we've got Shirley. I haven't got Joanne. Thank you very much, Joanne. We've got Becky for Labour and Vivienne for Lib Dem. Thank you very much, colleagues. So, Councillor Robinson as the fifth. Oh, for the chair. For the fifth member as a second. Oh, sorry, yeah. Who would that would be? Anybody? Second Conservative, I think Councillor Robinson was putting herself forward. Councillor Robinson, are you going for the fifth member?
Yes. An observation, Co-Chair,
Yep.
is that all of the members are female, which I in itself don't mind, but I just want to make sure that everybody is happy and aware of that.
And we have a female commissioner.
It doesn't. I don't see any issue with that. If that's who wants to do it, that's no issue to me. Is it any issue to the panel? No. Thank you, colleagues. That's wonderful. So we're agreeing. All of that. And the work programme. To outline the work for the programme for the panel for the coming year and has been provided by Democratic Services again, so thank you to them. It's proposed that the panel review the work programme once a new police and crime plan has been published and schedule future scrutiny of process against the priorities. It's proposed that the panel consider the Commission's draft police and crime plan at the next meeting in October. If I remember rightly, 3 years ago we did get it before that, so we should have it in plenty of time. Does anybody have any questions that we can answer? I welcome that report when it comes, and we can get on with our work plan for the year. And that's the end of the meeting. Thank you very much, and thank you, colleagues, and I look forward to working with everybody. Thank you.